John?
The question is, where do we go from here? Somebody said it, I think, at lunch, and it's really true. Status quo is not an option. So staying where we are, if you're in the have category, is not an option. And staying where we are, if you're in the have-not category, should never be an option. And we're either going to go forward or backwards. So the question for all of us, whatever time we spent here, is what do we take away that's going to ensure that we go forward and solve some of these problems? And so because staying the same it's not an option. You can't. You won't. If you try to stay the same, you'll fall behind.
You know, I was just struck as I was coming. First of all, my compliments to all of you for what you do, and for those of you that actually were the catalyst to bring this together. I think this is very exciting, and I think a very exciting moment. And I was reminded of a book I read on a flight some number of years ago. It was written by John Chancellor after he stepped down as the NBC anchor, and his title was Promise or Peril. And the thesis of the book was, he believed that for this country we were, either had great promise in front of us or we were at great peril in terms of maintaining our status on the world stage. And then his solution was military or public service mandatory for all of our young people as they were coming through, and believed that was the thesis of the greatest generation that came. And so this whole notion of becoming a catalyst to really get to that tipping point and pushing service to a whole new level, and the theme that we have here of this notion of Service Nation, I think is a very exciting opportunity for us. And I think each one of us need to be the change.
Great. David?
I want to hit 4 things very quickly. First of all, for those of you who are not used to hearing Jean, I'm sure that today listening to her moderate was a pleasure. I need to tell you what an incredible force she's been on the President's Council for Service and Citizenship. And what a force she's been, particularly in this space around rallying corporate America. Second, I wanted to point out Stan Soloway, who's on my board of directors of the Corporation for National Community Service. The board, Stan's been asked for the board to be our liaison within the corporate community. And as transition happens, which it will at the corporation, Stan and the board are going to be making sure that a lot of these initiatives maintain. 3, I want to just make sure folks focus on this unsexy word, research. The level of what we know today that we didn't know a few years ago about the impact that boomers and millennials are having in the workplace and in the volunteering space. What we know today about what happens to productivity in companies that do volunteering, that do philanthropy, what happens to morale, to recruitment, to retention. We have deep information now, and so it's important for us as we do this outreach to be relying on some of the facts. And then finally, I just want to note, from my point of view, we have a window that's open to us, and I think we all felt it today, certainly from the government side, and we feel it together within the nonprofit community. What you're seeing up here, I think, shows that this window's open in the corporate sector, and I can tell you, I meet with companies all the time, and there's a level of searching to find the right way to engage. Even as you'd think that people will be pulling in their horns as a result of the downturn in the economy, the pressures from the boomers and the millennials and this need to fix some of the key challenges around our communities and particularly education, I believe is forcing more businesses into this space. And so it's the perfect opportunity to push through that window and bring some change.
Great. Thank you, David.
I guess the one point I just want to reiterate is that the reality that business and philanthropy are not only not independent, but they're interdependent. And I think we all know that, and I think they need and rely upon each other to sustain themselves. Businesses have extraordinary resources. We all have extraordinary resources. We have virtual resources. We have physical resources that we could apply to this agenda. There's companies that are not as big as ours, like GE, Deloitte, and Target that that struggle with a lot of these notions. But and then I'll just kind of leave you with two thoughts. And one is that that we're talking about awareness, and awareness is important, but to be aware is not more important than what you wear. And finally, we can change the world, we can make an extraordinary, if we can't change the world and make an extraordinary difference alone, together we can be an accessory.
I dare you.
How do you follow those one-liners, man? I just want to thank our panel, and let me say, in the time that we've been gathered here today, two important private sector commitments have been made. One from PwC, all 31,000 employees will get an additional 10 hours of paid time off for community service, and this will result in 300,000 more hours of service. Bank of America has made an additional $20 million commitment over the next 4 years to strengthen youth engagement efforts in their communities. So the point being, wouldn't it be great if every day was like today? I mean, if we had, really, if we had the coming together and the momentum, but that's obviously what Service Nation is all about. A commitment by all of us, kind of to join hands, and to go out there, and as we've heard every panelist say, it's who's not at the table that we have to be focused on, and some of these companies are at the table already, but they're expanding their commitments. So I want to thank our awesome group of panelists. And David Eisner mentioned transitions, and I just want to say that as David leaves his role as the winds of Washington dictate every election season, I think David's done a great job of putting national service on the national agenda, providing great opportunities for the private sector to come along and sort of showing us the way on how a larger framework can take place. So thank you all, and thanks to our panel.